about why is 100% clean energy necessary? Why do we need that in Savannah? And how implementing this 100% clean energy in Savannah can make our community more healthier, vibrant, and more equitable. I'll hand it over to Nick now to move forward with the presentation.
All right, thank you, Janvi. So in March of this year, Council unanimously passed the 100% Savannah Renewable Energy Resolution, setting renewable energy goals for all of incorporated City of Savannah. So the goals are here listed, but they are essentially that by 2035, all electricity consumed within Savannah will be from renewable energy sources, and that by 2050, all of the other energy sources that we consume here in the City of Savannah will also be from renewable energy. So I can't speak highly enough of the Council for moving unanimously in this position and with this resolution, also because it is an audacious and ambitious goal. City staff and community organizations have been hugely involved in helping drive this effort. There's been a lot of grassroots movement around it. And I want to call out a few organizations specifically that have really been there through a lot of this effort and have gotten us to where we are today. That includes the local branch of the Climate Reality Project, Harambe House Citizens for Environmental Justice with Dr. Mildred McLean and Daoud Shabaka, Center for Sustainable Coast, which has been working on protecting our coast for a number of years here in a nonprofit capacity, and then Environment Georgia, which is throughout the state that have also really helped with this. And then also many of you out there, 100 Miles is here on this meeting as well. They have also been here protecting our coast for many, many years and just advocating for policy and protecting our entire 100 miles of coast. And I think that's one slice of a large number of organizations that have just been here, and many residents who are just driven to try and make the world a better place and more clean, healthy place for our residents. So why are cities, states, and countries around the world moving to 100% clean renewable energy? Well, it's not that, it's pretty apparent. We are experiencing the impacts of climate change. Our planet is warming at a very fast rate, and this is due to a large increase in greenhouse gases like carbon dioxide and methane that trap heat in our atmosphere. Folks, the science here is clear, and there's a direct connection between human activities that release greenhouse gases, the rising temperature, and the warming climate. And so not only are we witnessing this 1 degree Celsius rise, but we are on track to reach a 1.5 degrees Celsius rise in global temperature in the next few decades. And with this come the impacts of climate change, and they're huge. So we are experiencing more storms. We are experiencing more floods, more fires, and other natural disasters than we ever have before. And the intensity, the strength of those events is getting bigger, stronger, and more costly. They're getting more costly in terms of dollars, in terms of impact to human health, impact to our local ecosystems, and our larger economy. And the perspective in Savannah is not much different than what's going on around the globe. Now, we have really been fortunate so far, knock on wood, this hurricane season. But prior to 2020, Georgia experienced 4 hurricanes in the previous 4 years and 3 mandatory evacuations in those 4 years. So even though we've been pretty lucky this year, around the world, this has been one of the most challenging and record level hurricane seasons ever. We also know that major flood events are increasing in Savannah, specifically related to the occurrence of more intense storms and also rising sea levels. In fact, 70% of major flood events along the Georgia coast have occurred since 2015. So we know the data is showing us that these conditions are getting more impactful and more frequent. We're also experiencing more days of extreme heat here in Savannah. Since 2016, we have averaged 3 weeks of extreme heat days per year. That means 3 weeks of days with a heat index of 105 degrees Fahrenheit or higher. We did not have this kind of extreme heat in this amount 40 years ago. So our days are getting warmer and we're getting more days of extreme heat index. So in order to have an impact on these issues and to keep the planet from continuing its rate of warming, we have to take action. In the US, 63% of electricity is produced by burning fossil fuel, and this is mostly burning coal and natural gas. So I think as we're starting to flip into the good news side of this presentation, we have an opportunity here. We can make a real change and begin doing our part to reduce the impact of climate change. And cities around the US are already making great progress towards the 100% clean, renewable energy. All right, so I promise that is the end of the doom and gloom part of the presentation. We're moving more into the good news and the opportunity that really is here for us today. So everyone take a moment, take a deep breath, let it out. Savannah, I think the first bit of good news, Savannah is not alone in the goal that we have set here. If you look at this map, the dots throughout the US represent cities in America focused on transition to clean, renewable energy. With the 100% Savannah goals, we will now be a circle on this map. We won't be doing this alone, and we have other cities in the country who are all working on this. But not only that, we have cities right here in Georgia working on clean energy. Cities like Atlanta and Athens, Clarke County have already taken this step, and Savannah has very strong partnerships with both of these communities, both of these cities. So we will be working on this together and helping change policy in the state as well collectively. So overall, more than 200 cities within 11 states, Puerto Rico and District of Columbia have committed to 100% clean energy, and that number is growing. Here's a really, I like this visual. It gives a sense here on the left-hand side of this chart that that darker circle is the United States annual electricity consumption. It says 3.8 million gigawatt hours. Now I don't fully understand what 3.8 million gigawatt hours are, but it's represented by that dark circle there. On the right, by comparison, you can see the different clean and renewable energy technologies that we can use and the amount of electricity that we have the technical ability today to get from them. So the US has the ability to produce 100 times as much electricity from the sun through solar as we do each year from, as we consume each year. So it's 100 times more power that we could generate from the sun than what we're using, and 10 times more electricity from wind. So offshore wind power, rooftop solar panels, battery energy storage, and utility solar farms, we have a lot of renewable energy technologies that are getting better in their technology, and they're getting less expensive at a very rapid rate. So through renewable energy, we can produce more energy while also having a strong positive impact on our community health, our coastal ecosystems, and our local economy. So for those who may not have seen them before, I just want to give a few examples of renewable energy options visually here. Here's harnessing energy from the sun with solar panels. Also one that's not as thought about or mentioned all the time, but geothermal, so using the stable temperatures underground to help reduce energy use. And in fact, the city of Savannah, with the Savannah Gardens project on the east side of town, has specifically put in geothermal for a lot of the residential units there. And then finally, oopsie daisy, wind and harnessing wind to create energy. So we have the power to make a real positive and lasting impact on our community and on our local coastal ecosystems here in Savannah. So health and environment. Everyone wants clean air, clean water, clean soil. We want to go outside, breathe in deeply, and not cough. We want to grow healthy food and not worry about contaminants. We want our local fisheries and our coastal environment to be strong, and our health and our economy depend upon it. We want a thriving Savannah where everyone enjoys a high quality of life, everyone. The 100% Savannah energy transition, is part of our path to getting there. So now on to a little bit of the economic opportunity here as well. Statewide, $22 billion flows out of Georgia for non-renewable energy imports per year. Locally, I think this represents a really great opportunity for Savannah to begin really making a dent in lifting people out of poverty through all sorts of great new programs. And we have incredible economic opportunity here. with emerging technologies and tried and true practices that we've already known how to do. So we have the opportunity to bring in technical workforce training and employment opportunities around home weatherization, energy efficiency in the home and in the small business, renewable energy like solar, wind, and geothermal that I mentioned before. And all of that translates directly to better paying jobs in careers that have a strong and robust future. So just to give you a sense of what is already occurring, this is old data actually, this is from 2018, but you can get an idea of the scale of clean energy jobs around the US that are already here today. So on the top left, you see energy efficiency, 2.3 million jobs, 500,000 jobs in renewable energy, 138,000 jobs in grids, microgrids, and storage, 250,000 jobs in clean vehicles like hybrid and electric vehicles, and then other more renewable fuel sources, about 38,000 jobs. So these jobs, again, this is 2018 data, but it just points to the potential economic opportunity we have. So now getting on to Savannah's next steps. Right now, we are fully in the planning stage. We are preparing to take our next tangible steps towards the 100% clean renewable energy plan. And at the outset of this initiative, a key charge that was made by the mayor and council was to ensure inclusiveness and equity in the planning and implementation process. That anyone who wants a seat at the table will have a seat at the table. And that is how we have structured our whole next step in our whole planning process. That 100% Savannah plan will be developed by 100% of Savannians. So the city will be taking a lead role in helping organize and facilitate this plan. But I want to be clear that this is really Savannah's renewable energy plan. I mentioned before that this was a grassroots effort from community members and the organizations, like I mentioned previously, that really helped push this effort forward. So since they made it a priority and helped the resolution get passed, Savannah residents will also help us achieve the goals too. We want and we need your participation. Everyone who wants to participate in helping build out this plan will have the opportunity to lend their voice to it and to help create it with us. So there are two main priorities overarching the work and how we have developed this plan to ensure that charge from council of equity and inclusiveness really gets into and woven through and created in the plan. The first is social equity, recognizing that everyone in our community must be involved and represented in this energy transition, from the planning to implementation, if we're really to be successful. We know there are a number of low-income households or households living in poverty here in Savannah that already pay a huge amount of their income on their light bill each month or to heat and cool their home and have a very high energy burden. There are a number of our citizens who can't always access or easily participate in events like this or in initiatives like this for the planning process. We will continue throughout this whole effort to work on making this a priority with our residents and how we reach out to them, how we listen to them, and how we bring them in to the effort to help create it with us. The second item is policy advocacy. So this is recognizing that even with the energy that Savannah community has around moving to a clean energy transition, there are a lot of challenges that we will also face. We can't do it all by ourselves. And so we need partners around the state. We need partners around the country. And we need to impact real policy changes, both locally, at the state level, and nationally, that can help really get us the rest of the way there. So we will be actively working with our partners to drive the policies that make our goals achievable. And again, when I mentioned previously, Atlanta, Athens, and there are other cities in Georgia who have also made this pledge and made this goal and are working on it now. There's a lot of opportunity there for us to all connect together and have aggregate policy impact at larger levels of the state and the region. Okay, so just a few more slides. Here is where residents can really start to plug in more and start getting more interested in different areas that they might have specific expertise in. So as part of the planning process, we are going to develop in the new year working groups, what we're calling working groups, that are intended to be standing groups made up of representatives from our community They have specific subject matter expertise. Social equity and policy advocacy, as I mentioned before, will be a continuous component of all of the working groups. So that conversation will be had around social equity and inclusiveness and transparency and policy in each one of the topics of these working groups you see here. So we have community health and well-being. That will be a working group. Climate and environment, focused on our natural environmental systems and our coastal environment. Community education, recognizing that we continue to have folks who may not understand what we're doing yet, and we need to bring them up to speed, educate them about the benefits of clean energy, not just for the city as a whole, but for them as individuals and their community and their health. We'll have a full economics working group that really looks at the costs and the benefits of moving towards this energy transition. What are going to be some of the challenges? What are the real opportunities for savings or really even generating revenue? And then also a full area and work group on energy, the different energy technologies that exist out there, Georgia Power's role and our Public Service Commission role and all of that and how it plays into our plan. So that's not everybody, obviously, that can be represented in those working groups. We are also looking at developing focus groups, which we are going to kick off our resident-wide focus group very soon here in the next week or so after these meetings are complete at the district-wide level. These focus groups are targeted kind of public engagement campaigns intended to be about 2 to 4 weeks long, where we are collecting feedback from anyone who identifies with that focus area. And the feedback that we get from these campaigns will directly inform and fall back into the plan. So the outreach, we will do everything we can to conduct it in places and in ways that promote broad participation from each of the focus groups. And I'll go over those for a second here. So youth, just recognizing the role that youth play both as a rising population that's going to be a leader, as well as individuals living right now who have a lot of fears, concerns, and also dreams about what they want the future to be here in Savannah. So that will probably be an age range from about middle school up to 26 years old. So a little just after college. We will do a full resident-wide focus group, which I just mentioned we're going to kick off shortly here. Then we're going to do a specific focus group around frontline and vulnerable communities or members of the community. So recognizing that we have a number of neighborhoods and a number of community members who really, their voice is not often recognized or not often heard and lifted up the way it needs to be to really lift everyone into this plan, or to lift everyone into the future of what Savannah is going to look like. And so we will be giving dedicated attention to making sure that frontline and vulnerable community members have very direct voice in this planning process. Do I have all the answers as to how we're going to do that? No, not yet. And that is why we're putting this out now, to make sure that everyone can kind of help contribute and give us ideas and connections to the best ways to do that. And we want to be innovative about it. In the private sector side, we're going to have focus groups around local and small businesses, also a very important part of our local economy. Commercial businesses that would include hospitality and restaurant sector, larger restaurant sector, and then large industry as well. So all of those areas will have a place and a role to play. And in fact, you can be members of multiple different focus groups as we go through this process. All right, so this timeline that's popping up now provides a high-level kind of overview of the anticipated milestones during the 18-month planning process that we were given by council. So this includes quarterly updates, midterm presentations, stakeholder engagement, feedback from council, and then ultimately the adoption of the 100% Savannah plan, what we're targeting for September of 2021. So I want to reiterate, the city cannot do this on our own. It will require the active participation of all of you, our citizens. And ultimately, the plan will be the roadmap and be our guide as we move to achieve these goals. It will identify the actual projects. So this plan, when it's complete, we will have all the different projects that we've identified that we want to move forward. And it'll give us an economic impact of each one of those and a cost and a benefit of each one of those actual projects. And then it'll give us a schedule and a timeline for how those projects need to be implemented and completed and when. So as we move into this planning phase and as we walk through all of this, we're not just going to be planning. We are also going to be taking tangible steps in achieving our goals, like the projects that are on the slide here. And many of them have already been initiated or are in process. So I'll just highlight them real briefly. The Solarize campaign is almost like the Sam's Club purchase of solar panels and solar installation, where a number of people in the community come together and all say, yes, I want solar on my business or my home, and we get to lower the price because we're buying in bulk. The Climate Reality Project local branch is actually working on getting that whole Solarize campaign organized. We're also currently at the city working on getting solar on city facilities. So you'll be seeing more about that hopefully in the next few months. We are always looking for grant funding and new foundation connections that really focus on improving community health and energy transitions. It's amazing how much funding is potentially out there for projects that are really combining community health and well-being and key health indicators, and as well as clean energy and climate change. So large foundations are seeing that as a real collaborative space that they want to work in. Weatherization and energy efficiency, I want to focus on for just a second. I mentioned earlier, we know there are a number of households in Savannah that have a really high energy burden. In other words, it's the amount of their household income that they are spending each month to heat and cool and light up their home. And a large portion of that, or large reason for that, is because many of these homes are not operating efficiently. Their air conditioning systems or heater systems are not operating efficiently. Their windows are probably leaking, doors, they don't have insulation necessarily that's really robust. And so there's going to be a huge focus by the city in finding funding and programming that can really target those homes that have the highest energy burden in our community, and then begin really hitting on those to tighten them up and weatherize them and make them more energy efficient. Because it really does not make any sense for us to come in and put solar panels on a home whose door doesn't close and the windows are rickety and they don't have insulation, and their heating and air conditioning is just blowing lots of money out their door too. So we're going to make a very explicit focus on that. And then the bottom two are both about electric vehicles. So the city vehicle fleet is transitioning into more electric vehicles, which has already started, but we're going to be picking up the pace on that, I think, in the next few years quite significantly. And then also, not just for the city vehicles, but for the public as a whole, how do we make sure that as people are moving to electric vehicles, that we make sure that we have the charging stations and infrastructure available for them to be successful?